Hey, yeah, so I want to close out with this unless there's any more future developments, but I do want to make a message about what I think is, personally, this is not me trying to police or tell people what they should or should not be doing, but more kind of like advice and feedback about what might be appropriate for, just this kind of discussion and discourse. Now, I understand that some people may not be happy with the fact that I am somewhat disruptive with regards to Brooks and President Sunday later on. People have asked me about my opinion of Brooks for years. I've heard nothing but complaints outside of the occasional, like, oh yeah, he has some good ideas, he inspires some things and stuff like that. And so I started being more vocal about my opinion. I never really liked Brooks, and I've had issues with him ever since I met him because, like I said in previous videos, which I didn't want to make the focus of, okay? Some people have complained that I didn't get to the point fast enough, but I'm just going to be blunt with you. He comes off like he is what I call a self-insert industry plant. Like, it's not like a corporation is trying to make money off of this community, but rather he is adopting principles that he learned from his career in video games and I believe social media social media management to some extent. It's very obvious that he's going for a very social media oriented approach with this, and it just comes off as incredibly disingenuous and whatever. And I didn't really want to get myself involved in this for the longest time until I just started to get really frustrated with his behavior. It started with Gavin, bullying Gavin, which I get some people are like, oh, well, you misidentified which one was speaking. It's because I was referencing the transcripts. Okay, I was in a pretty hostile environment at that time, and quite frankly, both of them are acting like assholes in that clip. It doesn't really matter, like, who said what in that clip. They're both dicks, okay? They're both being dicks. They're both making fun of a new young person on the scene because he said something very specific that they don't like. It's not constructive, it's not helpful. Some people did watch that video later and said, hey, maybe he could have adjusted his perspective on this, that, or the other, but they're not condescending about that. They're not, like, talking down to him. The purpose of that material is to talk down to Gavin. It's not to improve his content or lectures. It's to talk down to him and to eliminate him, right? And I just think that is not what this shit is about at all. I think that's an incredibly pretentious and shitty way to be. I also think, I want to make very clear right now, the constant allusions to me being in a state of crisis or being psychotic or whatever is ridiculous, okay? I want to stress that I haven't had any sort of, like, crisis like that for years now. My condition is pretty well maintained. I'm very lucky that I'm able to do it without medication. I haven't taken medication for 2 years. People act like I stopped taking my meds. I stopped taking my meds 2 years ago, okay? My brain has very well adapted to the differences and the changes. And that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It doesn't mean that I don't have problems. And, I do think that one of my biggest flaws as an individual is that I do have a bit of a trigger finger with certain things, and I have curbed that tendency in the last 6 months, just through bad experiences. I think the biggest one was the etymology nerd thing. I mean, that really did look like plagiarism at first when I saw it. But now that, that went through, there were better ways to manage that situation than to just, fire off like that. Which is what a lot of people, that would be their first instinct, essentially, the way that I reacted. And I realized that, that's not how the audience views it. And the audience is kind of a twisted, weird set of individuals, rather. So, I have to keep that in mind when, moving forward. But, like, I'm not acting in a mentally ill way, first off, right? I think anybody who is watching this in sincerity, who is not just here to run up to defend their fucking daddy, right, is, can genuinely see that I'm not mentally ill right now. I am trolling. Okay, the thing that you're trying to do to other creators in our fucking community? You're not the only person who can do that, right? And again, what is with fucking President Sunday reacting to every single fucking thing? You know, you are bringing this onto yourself. If you just stopped replying, which is trivially easy to do, you just need to change your notification settings. Like, who are you really in contact with? Nobody actually likes you outside of, like, your fan base. Like, Bad Empanada literally made fun of you nerds for basically being dweebs. You know, that's the bigger sphere does not respect you. For a while, I genuinely feel like this guy just doesn't understand Deleuze, because, like, the way he acts is so antithetical to anything that Deleuze said. Like, Deleuze has that famous quote in What is Philosophy about how pretentious these fucking debate bros are and how fucking bad they are for, like, philosophy in general. And it's like, how do you make your whole fucking channel around that when Deleuze literally said you guys are the absolute scourge of philosophy? Like, how do you put that together? And I think it's just because they haven't read anything besides Anti-Oedipus. They have not proven that they understand anything that's outside of Anti-Oedipus, and it's just like, yeah, they don't even seem to understand Anti-Oedipus because they're going around and they're telling somebody who is essentially schizophrenic, who is not having an episode, who's clearly not, like, deranged right now, and saying, oh, well, you need to take your meds, you need to be recaptured by the apparatuses of capital so that you can go back into the status quo. Like, these are guys who are mad because, you know, you engage with a group of a bunch of weird artists and one of them decides that, you know, you guys are fucking assholes who are damaging other people and decides to use their art and expression against you. And you see that as a threat. You see somebody literally doing things the way you don't want to. Like, these idiots literally expect everyone that they engage with to either be in a fucking video, right, and watching, like, just giving them no opportunity to respond, or to be in a fucking stream podcast. Like, what the fuck, dudes? You can't be any more creative than that. You can't imagine anyone else possibly, like, you know, messing around with the sort of, what do you call it, like, messing around with the semiotics of YouTube to kind of, like, send a message, you know, like, and I want to say something about the frog thing, too. When I first found out about it, it was just kind of cringy, like, oh my god, really? Like, Brooks is behind that? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, small world, right? But the more I learned about it, the more it really pissed me off, actually. Like, I'm genuinely annoyed by this behavior. Why are you emphasizing your own astroturfed bullshit project that puts you on the fucking news? You in CNN. You. When we have all that shit going on in Mini, and yesterday I just found out that the DHS is going around and labeling random people who are protesting, who are not going around and doing the stupid dancing frog costume thing. People who are actually doing real material shit are being labeled as terrorists by the state. They are in real danger. For one thing, you're potentially putting yourself in very real danger over something incredibly stupid, right? Which, by the way, that is not a nonprofit. I have not found any information that confirms or denies that it's a nonprofit. I think you should clarify to your audience that whether or not this is a nonprofit, because it's not clear. People are saying it's a nonprofit charity, and I don't see any proof of that, and you need to make sure that you get that right, because the IRS will fuck you up about that. I am not saying that to be an asshole. I am saying that because I don't want you to get in trouble. But like, Jesus Christ, dude, like, you go and promote aggressively your astroturfed stupid fucking inflatable frog project that everyone else outside of your little sphere is laughing at you for. Everyone thinks this is the funniest shit that they've ever seen, the funniest, most pathetic shit that they've ever seen, and I agree with them. It's fucking pathetic. You should understand, right, that, you know, your whole argument about the genius of hiding your identity, is that really true? Like, you do realize that, you know, it's not that hard to actually trace who purchased things, right? I don't think that purchasing a out-of-the-box, highly identifiable thing that could be traced down to the manufacturer and traced down to the point of sale is actually covering your tracks as much as you think it does. Maybe you're purchasing it with all in cash and cryptocurrency, like, But I do think that you should be aware that, you know, I don't think that just necessarily having something that covers your face is necessarily, you know, protecting these protesters as much as you think it does. In fact, I would personally just advise getting a piece of cloth, right, and covering your face, because then that way, I mean, they can't trace where that's from. That's why you have unidentifiable clothing. That's why you have, you know, you try to cover as much of your face as possible, because we can clearly see from the DHS that they are just targeting people who have identifiable signs and signifiers and things like that. You are literally potentially putting people in harm's way, quite frankly, right? You know, like, not to mention that these inflatable costumes also present risks in terms of, like, well, what if you do actually get attacked? The risk of falling over is quite high. I would not want to be wearing an inflatable costume when trying to run away. What the fuck? Like, this... Just everything about this just demonstrates how fucking amateur hour this whole thing is, and just, like, how this guy is just some fucking corporate liberal hack entering our fucking community. Like, can I just point... Also, can I just ask, like, why is President Sunday the guy he decides to go with? This is a dude who I found evidence that he actually works with, like, academic people who are writing interesting things. Like, there was this one guy that he quoted on a blog post about his discussion of fluxes and flows, because I was wondering where he got that from, right? Was this part of a larger discourse? Is he borrowing from a particular writer? And apparently, he and this other guy came, and another third person came up with these discourses on their own. And the main person who was working on this is an academic who studies, you know, French literature and philosophy of science. Why is that guy not your fucking co-host? You know how awesome your show would be with somebody like that? Oh my god, the Liz community needs more people who are science heads. That is actually interesting. But you go for this fucking asshole who literally contributes nothing other than making... why him? What is this? Like... Again, it just comes off as completely out of touch, completely astroturfed, and completely not understanding, like, just what people really, like, benefit from reading Deleuze and Guattari. Like, we all know you don't read Guattari, okay? If you read Guattari, you would not be telling to my face constantly that I'm having a psychotic episode when I say things that you don't like. I'm entitled to every reason to be able to not like you. I am entitled to be able to say, hey, I think your project is distracting from real material efforts in other places in the country, and seems like you're trying to put your face in a really important issue. I think it's personally disgusting that you're trying to make this what apparently seems to be about you. Why is this all about you? Why does it have to be about your project? I think it's very suspicious that, you know, you guys thought it was a really good idea to have both of you launch videos at the same time promoting this project in some way or another, and promoting it as like a real act of resistance. You know, you go around and lecture your fucking audience pretentiously about how you're emancipating them and all this shit, even though you don't literally know anything about the history of how anti-Oedipus was even used in political movements or anything like that. Like, you don't even understand that this has been tried before, and people didn't understand it back then, and they made the same fucking mistakes that you're making. Actually, you're making way more mistakes than they did, but, like, you don't know anything about the Italian autonomists, for example. Like, they really kind of, like, they weren't just basing their stuff on this, but there were branches in that movement that were actually reading Anti-Oedipus and doing shit about that. What do you actually know about that? Did you just read the book and expected the emancipation to come out? Is that how your brain works? Because if that's the case, then you shouldn't be teaching people this shit, because you don't understand it. You clearly do not understand the core aspects of it. And it's just extremely frustrating, because we should not be having a channel like this, you know, growing so much, right? We should not be having a channel like this being so much of the focus. So I really want to kind of pull away moving forward on this frog situation, because, like, I get it. Like, I've said my point, you know, I've gotten my thing across, but I want to make very clear that the behavior that is incited by these people is incredibly destructive and counter to, like, what, like, people... It's just counter to what Deleuze and Guattari were talking about, right? You know, like, I get it. They're gonna go and respond and be all like, well, you're telling us what to do, aren't you just being a cop? Well, actually, no, because Deleuze and Guattari is all about deterritorialization and reterritorialization. It's not called anti-structuralism, it's called post-structuralism, right? We should be producing structures that are helpful and productive, right? Now, I am not going to say that every single structure that I produce is helpful and productive. I understand that my second channel can be a little bit dramatic because I'm a bit of a firebrand, and I accept that flaw in my personality. But what is this producing? This is producing people who literally come onto my channel complaining to me about, you know, how, like, I am having a mental illness attack, or, you know, getting mad that I fucking called President Sunday Brooks's boy toy. Like, somebody tried, some straight fucker tried to argue to me that that's fetishistic. Like, dude, I am so gay, okay? Like, I'm not saying that you can't be homophobic if you're gay, but I think it's very clear that the intent of that comment was not to fetishize or, you know, be homophobic or any of that weird shit. It was clearly, you know, I'm making a joking jab at the relationship between these two people, right? I make joking jabs about, homosexual jabs about the relationships between many people, including people that I like. I mean, a big part of, you know, my gag is making jokes about Guattari and Lacan, you know, pairing up, right? That shit's pretty funny. But, like, again, like, that's not, you know, that's not the same as a straight person saying it, okay? It's more like shipping. Okay? I can't believe I have to fucking explain this, but, you know, I'm gonna have a bunch of straight liberals lecture me about how I gotta fucking, you know, act while they're going around and doing all this stupid shit. And again, if you think that, you know, your money has to go to something as fucking useless as inflatable fucking frog costumes that don't even really obscure a person's identity because it doesn't obscure all of the data that was used in order to purchase those costumes in the first place, then, you know, just... Grow up! Grow up! There's a reason why I'm showing the footage that I'm showing right now. Use your fucking brains. Come on. Alright. Now, what is this idiot up to now? What? President Sunday is baiting fucking electronic connections? Dude, you know what? Build a radio transmitter on screen, then I'll take your fucking opinions on machines seriously. Until then, shut the fuck up.